Fascioscapulahumeral muscular dystrophy. We're going to talk about positivity balanced with realism today. And we're going to be talking about denial. Now, I was diagnosed, as you just heard in the intro to this program, in 1984 with FSH MD. I was 14 years old, and I grew up with this disease half of my teenage life and all of my adult life. I've met dozens of people with this form of muscular dystrophy and other types of MD as well. And every now and then I meet someone with this dreaded disease that seems to have their head in the clouds and watching for unicorns and walking in roses and working at the end of a rainbow. They're very hyper positive. You'll never hear one negative word out of their mouth. Everything is up and upbeat and happy-go-lucky. And I've even met some, the more religious ones, the more fundamental Christians, if you want to call them that or whatever. I call them hyper-faith religious individuals. They don't even say they have FSHMD. They say it's a, quote, bad confession to say that it'll make their symptoms worse and it'll open the door to the devil into their life, and etc. So, after all these years, I've learned to stay, positive as much as you can, living with this debilitating, deteriorating disease. I don't believe you should go around depressed all the time or angry or anything like that. But I do believe this. I do believe there has to be a balance of positivity with realism. Because what I have found is in those individuals that are living in the clouds and walking on cloud nine, and they never have one negative word to say about their disease or their illness or their symptoms or their pain that they're having or whatever, or their financial woes or their marital woes, all caused by the MD. What I have discovered in this is that they never worked through the denial stage of grief. Let me help you all out a little bit. When we were diagnosed, and those of us that were diagnosed with FSH muscular dystrophy, then that is a traumatic diagnosis. And therefore, we have to work through the different stages of grief, just like someone does who dies or goes through a divorce or goes through any kind of abuse or trauma or anything like that. Because when you get the diagnosis of any type of muscular dystrophy, your whole life is changed for the worse. For the worse. Now, that's not positive, but that's real. Your whole life is changed for the worse from that moment on till you die. Okay, let's get that fact established right off the bat here. So what I've learned is that these hyper-positive individuals, they act positive, they talk positive, they just live in a bubble. And, nothing's ever wrong. They could have, I know this one guy who had FSH, he fell down. And, he cut his knee wide open. He may have even broken a bone or fractured a bone, or it was a bad fall anyway. And never would say anything negative about that. Nothing. Because he just believed any negative comment would make matters worse. Well, that's not true. That's not true. Over the years in my job, I worked in state prisons for 17 years, and I counseled people for over 30 in different lines of work I've been in. And through these different stages of grief, there's anger, there's depression, there's denial, and, then there's finally closure. What we're dealing with in these hyper positive individuals, and I don't mean to offend anybody, I'm trying to help you, is we're dealing with patients of the FSH that have never worked their way through the denial stage. They're still in denial. They're in delusion. They're deluded. They cannot accept the fact, the hard, cold fact, the brutal, honest truth that they indeed have Fascioscapulahumeral muscular dystrophy. They can't accept that. They're in denial of this. Now, I'm not one to tell anybody what to do. I'm not your boss. I'm not your mom. I'm not your daddy. And I'm just offering advice here. Now, that's not a good, healthy, mentally, emotionally healthy way to live. I just got through telling someone the other day. We was talking about my diagnosis and how I've coped with it over these years. And I've been a motivational speaker now for over 25 years. And speaking to large groups, small groups, whoever. And there has to be, it's mandatory that you balance positivity with realism. And that's in any area of your life. But I'm dealing with the FSH in this video because it's healthy to talk about this, to vent. That's why I make all these videos about my disease. Some videos you'll see me and I'll be angry over something. A lot of videos I talk about my physical pain I deal with. Now, every now and again, I'll touch on the emotional and the mental pain and the stress and the anguish that this disease has put me through, the financial burden that it's put me under, not being able to work as much or as often as I would like to because of the disease. It's a very tiring, tiresome, wearisome, fatiguing disease. All this is real stuff. You won't find me at the end of a rainbow digging for gold, looking for unicorns. That's not real. Now, if that works for you, knock yourself out. But you know what? It won't last forever. Because reality, sooner or later, one way or the other, will hit you. And it's best to deal with this as it comes. Just accept the fact that you have Fascioscapulahumeral muscular dystrophy. Accept it. Now, I say this 34 years later after my diagnosis, and I make it sound easy. It's not easy. It's very difficult. You're looking at a man. At 14 years old, I was an athlete, a basketball player, football player, normal, healthy, young man that had my life changed in a matter of days. I went from playing sports to wearing a leg brace. So it's not easy. I don't want it to sound easy. I want it to sound real, but it's very difficult. Very difficult. Plus, my father was a big brute of a man. He never accepted my disease. He wanted to put me in a nursing home when I was 17 years old. And so that was another stress. And then, the rejection of society, the rejection of the opposite sex. All of this is real stuff. I've made other videos about all this. So, I just want to encourage you. Be positive, but balance it. Keep a healthy, mental, and emotionally healthy, stable balance of realism. It'll make your life easier. It'll make your mind more at peace. It'll make your spirit more at peace. You won't be taken off guard by much because you learn to accept what comes. You roll with the punches. But you got to, have this mentality of positivity balanced with realism. So that's all I've got. I hope this helps you today. And if you like this video, hit the like button. And if you like my channel, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Y'all take care now. Bye-bye.